And a very warm welcome to the CuppaChino Club's social TV channel. An empowered woman is someone who knows her strengths and isn't afraid to embrace it. And so we invite you to join us on our COVID-19 conversations series that aims to inspire, to encourage, and empower through conversation. Thank you for tuning in, and don't go away. We will be right back.
Best is yet to come.
And if you're just joining us, a warm welcome to the CuppaChino Club's social TV channel. I'm your host, Bridgetti Banda. I am passionate about responsible social media advocacy. And so talking about COVID-19 in a responsible manner is exactly what we do here on the show. Today is day 41 of the lockdown, so a warm welcome to each one of you. My co-host is Viola Manuel. She's an accomplished senior executive. She was CEO of the Cape Chamber of Commerce and Industry and also the executive director of the Cape IT Initiative. She's also a member of the Western Cape Premier's Council of Skills, to mention just a few. Viola also serves as a non-executive on the National Sea Rescue Institute of South Africa and is the deputy chair of the Cape Town Stadium. Part of her entrepreneurial adventures is G&B Retail and Afri-Wellness, but as she always very, very fondly says, her proudest achievement is her 10-year-old son, Shay. So a warm welcome to you, Viola.
Thank you so much. I've not had that introduction for a very long time. Thank you so much, Bridgetti. Thank you. Just in the spirit of not passing any fake news, I was on the Premier's Council of Skills, and I just feel like, those jobs that I have listed on my bio, feel like they've happened 1,000 years ago. Like, just so much has happened. In the meantime, we've had a water crisis. We've got part of a, sort of global crisis, and it's just crazy stuff has been happening. But it was in my role as the ED for the Cape IT Initiative, I think that we actually met the first time, wasn't it?
Yes, and that also feels like many, many moons ago.
But it was actually quite long ago. I mean, we don't want to give our age away, but it was over a decade ago. So, this friendship has been going on for quite a while. And I think it's CuppaChino Club's really been, you producing the shows for us has really been, I think, the first time that we've worked for such an extended period together. So it's been a very, very good experience. And just sitting here, realize that the CuppaChino Club is almost, almost 10 years old as well. So, time's moving on. It's day 41 of
It does. It's day 41. But before we dive into the conversation about COVID-19, and it's a great, we've had a brilliant week behind us in terms of the kind of conversations we've had about COVID-19, and maybe we can just review one or two of those points. But before we do, perhaps you could just highlight, one or two of the main reasons why the CuppaChino Club exists.
Yes, I think, the most important thing is to add value. Our constituency is mainly women. Actually, it's only women. We have a few subscribers who are male, and we really, really enjoy having them and hearing their voice in this whole discussion as well. But the whole idea behind the CuppaChino Club is to add value and to be there to support each other and to be there to just really assist. And the networking has been amazing, and the positive stories coming out of it has been amazing. There's at least 3 or 4 stories I could tell you about where people have found jobs on this network. People have found very good friendships on this network. People have found very good advice on this network and have been able to just sort of reach out and say, you know what, I need a shoemaker, I need a candlestick maker, but also just I need advice and help with my business. I need a commercial lawyer. Those kinds of messages are the messages we get. And with COVID-19, it's just been amazing to me how the women have just rallied together, doing important stuff like vetting to make sure that nobody's spreading fake news, which was to me very, very important. And everybody sort of just handled it so maturely, and everybody's just been amazing. So that's really been the objective. And the amazing thing about the group, Bridgetti, just my sort of final comment on it, is the fact that everybody has made it their own. It's just ownership of the CuppaChino Club belongs to the ladies who are part of the CuppaChino Club. And that to me has been great. The legacy is amazing. It's just everybody feels that sense of belonging to the point that everybody can help give it direction and get involved. So that's great. And then we had we've just had some interesting opportunities, from Europe and from the States in terms of hooking up our ladies with those ladies. And it was never our intention to go that formal. But I think the social media and the live streaming has really helped. And of course, just the fact that the women who are part of our network are amazing. So, yeah.
No, it absolutely has been quite an amazing journey. I know when we decided, when we talked about doing the series initially, we were looking at a 16-day, 21-day lockdown period. And so we only initially planned to do the series for a maximum of 21 days. And here we are 41 days later.
Yeah, and I also promised you that there would be a day where I would have absolutely forgotten about it, have to jump on the show with no makeup, my hair in a ponytail, and I'm so proud of myself that it hasn't come to that. So, it's been a good experience, and I must tell you, just having conversations with some of the people that we've had a chance to meet, just amazing people, bright, intelligent, competent individuals who have just been a complete inspiration. So it's been a very, very good 41 days.
Yes, it has. And I want to just say a warm welcome again to everyone in the audience who's watching us live on the different social media platforms. Great to have you joining us. And I think, what we've been able to accomplish in the last 41 days, Viola, without too much pre-planning. In fact, we literally haven't done that much pre-planning with our shows, except when we've had some phenomenal guests, like we had Professor Dr. Anthony Turton on the show and Benoit Leroy. We had Mitch Jackson. We had Lisa Wood, who is a Cape Town attorney. In fact, we are arranging for them to come back again to follow up on the conversation we had with Mitch Jackson, to talk more about the legalities and ways that companies in South Africa can and should be protecting themselves before they open up their business. And perhaps even those who haven't even considered it and have already opened up need to also back up a bit and make sure that they've got their checks and balances in place. And the reason why I believe that is such an important conversation to have is because I don't know if you've seen it yet, Viola, but I saw that just today they've published the fines for non-compliance with the COVID-19 lockdown regulations. And they are quite steep. Maybe we can run through one or two of them.
That's a good idea. I think it's also, while we find those fines, I think it's important for everybody to also understand that it's not just about the fines, that they could also shut down your business. So they will fine you and shut down your business. So there's not just the cost of the fine, there's also the cost of having to, have your business go, be locked down, and you really can't trade or you can't offer your services. So, some of these fines, people are listening to the fines are not, it's a problem. It's a problem. They will not just fine you. I'm sure that, you'll get one or two warnings, and afterwards your doors will be closed. So
Yeah, no,
what have you found
absolutely.
there that's interesting, specifically relating to business?
I'm going to try and share just some of those.
Okay.
And you may not be able to read them on screen because it is a little bit small. But let me see if I can magnify that a bit. I'm doing this on the fly, so give me a second. I'm literally doing this as we speak.
So I love hanging out with you. You're just so So cool. They're just so cool. Okay.
There we go. I'm not sure if you can read any of that, but are they what they are? So the fine for infecting anyone with COVID-19. Let's see. Okay, so the first one is if you make a misrepresentation with regards to a person being infected with COVID-19, that carries a 3,000 Rand fine.
So that's basically saying that somebody you work with or somebody that you know is infected, but that's actually malicious. It's not true. You could be fined 3,000 Rand for that.
So, people tend to, in the spirit sometimes, or that they think they're being lighthearted. People may say something like that in jest. Um, and the fact that it carries a 3,000 Rand fine means that it's not a joke, and that you open yourself up for some legal liability here.
Yeah, of course.
And then also to intentionally expose another person to COVID-19, and this speaks to people in the business environment as well. There's a 5,000 Rand fine if you intentionally infect someone. And I think here is the warning for businesses.
Yeah,
I think Mitch spoke about that yesterday. He was saying, it's one thing to have um, warnings in place, but if you are not enforcing those warnings and literally the one thing he stressed was that you need to go over these things with your staff every single day. So before you start your business
absolutely.
day, just
Yeah,
re-emphasize, reinforce
yeah,
what the procedures are and what the legal requirements are with regards to
absolutely.
COVID-19.
And he actually used a fantastic example. He was sort of saying if you've got let's take a hairdressing salon and you have the little markings on the floor that say, this is the social distancing, people aren't, going to be able to come into that space. And another stylist sort of completely ignores it and walks across that space, you become liable. So you really do need to know what it is what you're putting out there. Your staff need to make sure that they adhere to it. Same thing with masks. We know that it's mandatory that everybody wears a mask. If your staff are not wearing their masks, even when people are not in the store, you have got something to worry about because you are exposing other people to COVID-19 as the business owner. So I do think, one of the things I was having a conversation about is that I just have a sense, and maybe it's just, it's completely it's not factual, but this is just a sense that I have, that business owners are not necessarily understanding the complete level of responsibility they have when they open their doors in this current crisis.
Yeah, I think that is one of our biggest challenges, is people not understanding the gravity of it. Let's just run through one or two of the other fines here. Going to work without a permit carries a fine of 500 Rand.
Okay.
So I think that puts a burden on employers to ensure that each one of their employees needs to have a copy of the permit on them each and every day, because
Yeah.
I'm sure that staff members are, if they get fined, they're going to turn around and say, I'm not paying this fine. My employer needs to be liable because they failed to provide me with a certificate.
Correct. Correct. And that brings another very important discussion. Who is liable for these fines? If you are expecting your staff member to drive around during curfew, where it's illegal to actually leave your residence between 8 and 5, and you're saying there's an emergency, go and drop stock off at one of the malls or at one of our other distribution points, and it's not permitted, that fine that you would be eligible for, the 500 Rand fine, who pays that? Is the staff member expected to pay it, or does the business pay it?
Yep, absolutely. Let's see, what are the one of the other ones. Um, illegal eviction of a person, which speaks to our estate agency industries.
Yeah,
So
five
that
thousand
carries a
rand.
fine of 5,000 Rand. Yeah.
Wow. Selling tobacco products, e-cigarettes, and related products, 1,000 rand. And yet we were talking about the fact that the ban on cigarette sales has created this major sort of underground and black market. And it's been very interesting to see that that fine is actually quite high also. A
It,
thousand
it is
rand.
it is quite a steep fine, yes. And then also retail stores selling illegal goods carries a fine of 1,000 Rand. And I think when we talk in terms of retail stores, we may think your Pick and Pays, your Woolworths, Spars, but retail goods would also mean your hair salons or other businesses
Yeah,
that are selling goods that are not on the permitted list. Um, you
yeah.
know,
Brigitte, didn't we see something a little earlier about fake news?
yes, there was. Let me just scroll. Also, convening a gathering,
Yeah.
carries a fine of 3,000 Rand. That's also an important one to notice.
Yeah, I've seen a lot of articles about churches now. Writing a lot of letters about opening churches and other religious gathering places, and it's just as much as I know people may be missing that sort of social interaction. It's just such a risky thing.
Yeah. And I mean, the same thing is, that intentionally exposing a person to COVID-19, to me, there's quite an intersection with that convening a gathering
Yeah,
kind of thing, failure to protect,
yeah,
so I think,
absolutely. So the whole idea is for us to really just understand what the signs are, and as much as there's this risk, that we want to just sort of ignore the fines and sort of think nobody will know. It's not just about the fine. It's not just about the compliance. It's the actual health and safety risks as well that we must be considering. It's not just, I'll convene a gathering, no one will know, I won't get caught out. It's not just paying the fine, it's the risk involved because, in certain instances, you could get convening a gathering, intentionally exposing people to COVID, or telling people it's okay, it would be safe, would actually fall under that section we were talking about, publishing any statement to deceive any person about COVID-19, which is the fake news issue. So it might end up that you have actually, like, two or three of these fines, or you might be guilty of um, contravening at least two or three of these. So, but I think it's also important for us in our context to talk about, publishing any statement to deceive any person about COVID-19.
absolutely. So one's got to be exceptionally careful, because you could find yourself, as you just rightly said, with not just one fine, but you could find yourself with two or three or four overlapping fines.
Yeah,
And in this particular in the economic climate that we're currently finding ourselves in, I think none of us can ill afford to spend 500 Rand. That is an unnecessary expenditure, let alone businesses that are very, very tight at the moment. So, I think we cannot overly emphasize enough the importance of familiarizing yourselves with these regulations, and
absolutely.
making sure your staff understand them.
Correct, correct. And so, one of the things that we've taken quite seriously is the fact that right now on all these WhatsApp groups, it's really the administrators that can be taken to task on publishing any statement to deceive others about COVID-19. And I know what a lot of groups have been doing is actually just allowing admin to post. So a lot of social groups are just saying only admin can post, mainly because the information has got to be vetted because it carries such a heavy fine. And also, I think, again, it's, we speak about the risk. I think it's also just the fact that people, when they see a bit of information that they think is important, the first thing that they do is they just send it on to so many others. And it has such a, the unintended consequences of that fake news could actually be quite detrimental.
Oh, absolutely. One's got to be incredibly careful, just sticking to the business community and the effects of COVID-19. We've had a number of instances where Pick and Pays and spas had to close down, and now we see that four um, Woolworths branches in the Western Cape, in particular, has also had to close down. It's the stores in Constantia Village, Milner Road, Kenilworth Centre, and also Hart Bay. Um, so, I think just a warning again, a lot of people tend to want to go out of the house
Mm,
so that they can meet up with their friends in the store, and that's their sort of coffee time,
yeah,
if you but it's a dangerous game to play. You really need to go there with your list, get what you need, and get out of the store as
yeah,
quickly as possible. Because imagine we get into a scenario where all our retail stores are having to close down because they have cases of COVID-19. If just one staff member tests
yeah.
positive, an entire store has to close down. It has to be deep cleaned. It has major consequences.
Yeah, it would be interesting to know what that process is when people talk about deep cleaning, what that process actually means. Because if I look at these stores, you sort of have ShopRites closing down, and these stores, they can't really afford. But what about the small business owner who's now invested all this money in terms of setting themselves up to be COVID ready, and to um, have everything that they need so that they can open during lockdown level 4, and then of course the authorities come in and close you down. It's not something that small businesses can afford. So I would really say what I'm starting to see is going to work is understand the regulations, keep yourself updated on the regulations, even if it just means that the sort of WhatsApp groups that a lot of business owners belong to, take the time to read that information, vet that it's the correct information, take the time to make sure your staff are briefed, make sure that the legal, that you have liability insurance. It is so important. I mean, one of the things that Mitch spoke about is liability insurance. And I was thinking to myself, I don't even know if a lot of our small business owners have any kind of liability insurance, but it's becoming so important to have that now.
And I mean, you also want to know who pays then for that deep cleaning.
Yeah.
What if a small business owner cannot pay for deep cleaning? Who then
Who does,
takes
yeah, who does that? Is
responsibility for doing that?
Yeah, so would it be I'm trying to think now. It would actually be the store that I think would probably, but what about businesses where it's your office space, where it's office space that you're renting, that would the landlord be expected to pay that?
It'd be interesting to know that, and possibly when we have Lisa Wood back, our South African attorney, we're hoping to have them back, the entire panel of attorneys, and I think that's one of the questions we could
Yeah,
possibly pose to them.
yeah, that would be interesting. That discussion would be interesting. Wow, these numbers are so scary.
So these are our current numbers, and I think the significant thing about these figures is how in the Western Cape it has tripled.
Mm,
Um, that's quite significant because for the longest time, at the outset, Gauteng province was the leading
leading.
province in terms of figures for quite a substantial period, but the Western Cape has now taken that number one slot.
And
Um,
a double. I mean, a lot of our numbers are, it's like definitely the death number has doubled, is, compared to KwaZulu Natal. Um, the next highest one. It's very scary to see.
yeah, absolutely. So I think, just the warning again is be careful. Um, familiarize yourself with the law, with the lockdown regulations. Make sure that your staff understand them, and be safe.
And
None of us have got money to waste on fines.
absolutely. And again, if you read the rest of that article, it's actually about a cluster outbreak that happened in the Western Cape. So what that means is that it's a concentrated area.
Yeah.
So we talk about
Um,
the malls and the those kinds of places. That's where it actually happens. You like spread it so quickly.
Malls have definitely been identified as hotspots, and also funerals, and that's why there's such a firm stance on funerals in
Yeah,
particular. It's a very sad thing to be able to deal with, especially if you've personally lost someone that you love or care
yeah,
about in death at this time.
yeah.
It's not. We don't want to trivialize that, but the caution is to be very, very careful.
Absolutely. And of course, you look at it, 161 deaths, and I know, you know, um, one death is already one too many. Um, I just, you think of those families that are so badly affected at this time. Just economically, things are bad. Just emotionally, things are bad. It's such a terrible time to lose someone you love.
Oh, absolutely. So that's kind of a wrap for what's been happening over this last week. Tomorrow we have got an exciting guest. Really looking forward to our guest tomorrow.
Yeah, you know what? One thing that we sort of planned for this show is to talk about what had happened during the week. But I think it's best for all our viewers just try and get onto LinkedIn, get onto YouTube, onto any one of the platforms, and actually watch the shows. They were just the content was amazing, and there's just so much to learn. There was just so much to learn about the role water's playing, and to have the conversation with Professor Turton and Benoit, who's the CEO of the Water Chamber, was just very, very insightful. And there's just like so much more that we should be knowing about this disease and how it's spread.
Oh, absolutely. So the reason why I'm excited about our show tomorrow is because we're going to be interviewing a small business owner who was able to take advantage of the changed circumstances with COVID-19 and was able to pivot really quickly. I was very, very
Yeah.
impressed to see how quickly she managed to put it together. So do join us tomorrow
Yes.
and meet one of our local entrepreneurs who has been able to turn her business around in a short space of time and to embrace the new normal.
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to the interview tomorrow. Thanks, everybody, and thanks for watching.
Thanks, everyone, and we'll see you again tomorrow. Stay safe.
Thank you. Bye.